What kind of body practice? Busy then, I bet. So that's short. Is there busier times of year, or is it just always busy?
It's always busy, but and also, someone's trying to
You weren't scared to sit in the second row? You weren't scared to sit in the second row?
This is nice. It's nice to be,
yeah. Did you do the sound? No, we didn't get it because we're getting fired up for. He's the guy. I was just telling Casey a little bit over here. I'm telling you right now, I follow orders. I know, it just, I know it might seem like, what are you guys saying? What's up? We are.
I fall asleep on the couch. I fall asleep on the couch. I know it doesn't like
Test, test. Check, check, check. Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach, welcome. Our tradition teaches, I think I need a little more volume on this microphone. Our tradition teaches that at Shavuot, at the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, it says that we were all there. Souls past, present, and future were all at Sinai. Well, tonight we're not at Sinai, we're at HEA, but we're really pleased to be joined by our friends at Temple Sinai as we stand together as one community, just as we did at Mount Sinai. One community united in Torah and in our tradition and values. And tonight will be a night of learning in honor of Shavuot. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time now. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Rabbi Sarah Schulman, and we're going to get our evening started.
Thank you, Rabbi Grunwald. And I also want to recognize that we're joined tonight by our Moishe Pod Central. What's a Moishe Pod? It's sort of like a Moishe house, only a little smaller, like a pod. No, it's a wonderful group of people. It's led by Zach and Maggie, and they will be teaching a little bit later tonight, and so we're really excited for them. Welcome for them to join us tonight. When we thought about what we wanted to do tonight, we wanted to do something together because it is so important to be in solidarity with others across the Jewish community. But we also knew that we wanted to talk about what's happening in Israel because that is near and dear to our hearts. We want to be able to have separate discussions and breakouts, but also to be able to come together in music and prayer and learning together. And so we're going to do a little bit of in and out. We're going to begin together, as you can see on your handouts, with a panel discussion after we watch a short trailer from a movie to get that panel discussion. And then we'll break out into breakout groups, and then we'll come back together for our service and music, led by Eitan and Ruthie. And then we'll have an opportunity for, of course, cheesecake, because it wouldn't be Shavuot without dairy dairy desserts and vegan dairy desserts. And then we will have an opportunity for more music and a tish and more learning. And so we hope that this is really enriching. I hope that you meet people that you maybe don't know from another community, and also have an opportunity to walk away with some new ideas and be enriched by learning, because this is the night we receive Torah, again, renew, and for each of us, Torah comes in a little bit differently. And so we're going to start off our panel discussion with a short clip from the movie The Narrow Bridge that was made in 2022. And I think that date is really important. We'll come back to it and sort of ask ourselves the question about what's different and what's the same. And then I'm going to invite up Rabbis Rines, Grunwalds, and Shields to join me for a little discussion about the movie and some of the themes that also it relates to in terms of the book of Ruth that we read on Shavuot and the themes, and then we'll take it from there.
بسيطة وحلوة.
My daughter's mother was an absolutely amazing, vivid, sparkling little girl.
אני הייתי בת של אבא. הוא לימד אותי לעשות הכל.
Your kids, your wife, your family become your homeland.
You start running in the streets, trying to find her, and you go from hospital to hospital.
It's a copy. It's a mirror. We want to kill each other to achieve peace and security.
لما كان لي محمود راح هيك يعني كل شيء طلع مني.
תקפו אותו בגרזנים, רצחו אותו כמתנה לחמאס. צריך כל כך לשנוא כדי לעשות משהו כזה.
An Israeli border police shot and killed my 10-year-old daughter, Abir.
When someone kills your little girl, you are so angry.
To see someone torture those Jews, kill them, whatever.
You ask yourself, will killing anyone will bring her back? What can you do personally in order to prevent this unbearable pain from other people?
ישראלים ופלסטינים, כדי לשתף בכאב ולהציע תקווה.
نسيت انها عدوة او كلام واحد جرح واحد.
This is how to use your pain to build a bridge between people.
This is about a response to human grief.
אני הבאתי אותם כדי שהם יחיו, ואני לא רוצה מראש שיקרה להם משהו. לא להם ולא לאף אחד אחר.
A radical, unique and holy response to human suffering.
Okay, so as you can see, this is just the trailer of a much larger film, which is made by this organization that brings together Israeli and Palestinian parents who have both lost children in the conflict. So that's the context as you. And now I'd love to invite up rabbis, all of them, for some conversation. Make sure your microphones are on. Yeah. Okay.
A blessing for study.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So before we into with some questions, tonight we are receiving Torah. We're engaging la'asok, to engage in the words of Torah. So Rabbi Rines, would you like to lead us in the blessing that we say when we study Torah?
We say together. This is a blessing we say every morning, but as we are about to engage in Torah study, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, creator of the universe, You've sanctified us with mitzvot, and you've commanded us to engage with words of Torah and engage, including Torah that is a part of a film that's engaging and challenging as well.
Thank you. And the Torah of everyone here, because we all have our own Torah. So for my first question, and maybe I'll send this over to Rabbi Shields to start us off. So as we saw some of the headlines that were pasted, the words across the screen, it talked about from trauma to hope, or from grief to hope. I'm wondering, how does this idea and the themes of the film, The Narrow Bridge, connect to the book of Ruth that we read on Shavuot for you?
Yeah, so I started to watch this with my son a little bit ago. He didn't make it all the way through, but he's been learning about this conflict that's happening since October 7th, but also about pain of people, right? And he's seen interviews on television. And so for me, that to see this, it was actually a pick-me-up in some ways, to watch it with him and see in the face of such pain and loss, there is still, I hope still, maybe it left us on October 7th, I don't know, but I hope for resilience and growth. And you see that in the story of Ruth. I mean, the story of Ruth is one of such deep tragedy and loss, yet somehow finding a way to step forward again in some new ways. And so that's a lesson that really struck me and really connected, made the ancient story of Ruth kind of come alive in a new way.
Thank you. As many of you may remember, but might need a little refresher, the book of Ruth begins literally in chapter 1 with death and with grief. And Naomi, who's just lost her husband, ends up connecting to her daughter-in-law, Ruth, who's also, at that point, not a Jewish person. And so there's this connection of two women who are really bonded through their grief. And so I'm wondering if that's something, Rabbi Grunwald, you'd like to pick up on a little bit in terms of how it speaks to you.
Well, first I'll just say a few words about how it connects to the book of Ruth, because I think that Ruth is a complex character. She is, in many ways, the paradigm of someone who joins the Jewish people, becomes part of the Jewish people in her declaration, you know, your God will be my God, I will go where you will go, your people will be my people. But then when she comes to the land of Israel, she is still seen by the native people as other. She is still pointed out as a foreigner, right? And where I think there's a connection to this film is the challenge of the insider, the outsider, who the foreigner is, who we're willing to extend our empathy to. It's always easier, of course, to extend our empathy to our own family and to those we see as our people. And I would love to see the whole film. I really hope that at some point we can bring this film to Denver. But I think that today, especially, it's a poignant reminder of the limits sometimes of of feeling empathy and seeing the other as the same as yourself.
Do you want to comment?
Yeah,
Rabbi Rentz?
On one hand, even towards the very end of the book of Ruth, she's referred to as the Moabite woman. But of course, then she becomes the grandmother of King David. And so her lineage is one that supersedes then her past. So she no longer is the other, but she becomes one of us. And it's that heartwarming feeling that we can overcome that which divides us. Because the Moabites were enemies of Israel. And if you read through the books of Kings, we had terrible warfare against the Moabites. And that's why in my section I'm going to be talking about, is there an analogy that we can draw from the Moabite-Israelite differences that then were overcome, and then later on, does that reflect into some hope with the Palestinians and the Israelis right now? And there's a major part of me that wants to say, oh yes, of course. And these people were able to say, how much they were able to overcome their hatred. And I wanted to kill this person, but now I see that this person is also suffering. A lot of the people on October the 7th, they were the peaceniks. A lot of the people who were murdered by the Palestinians were those who had invited Palestinians to their homes, to their kibbutzim, to their moshavim, and to help build their villages. And so I don't want to be Charlie Brown, always kicking that ball to have it taken away and be fooled again. And to make, through my desire to believe in something that's not really there, lead me, in fact, to make vulnerable the people that I love, my family.
Yeah, it's apt that this important to acknowledge that the film was made in 2022, and I'm wondering who might want to comment here in terms of, you know, when you think about that in terms of what's different. We don't know, you know, Amy and I were talking about how it'd be so interesting to follow up with these families and to hear what they have to say, right? We can't speak for the parents in the film, but I'm wondering if any of you might want to comment in terms of how it sits with you in terms of could this film have been made today? What is similar and what is drastically different?
I think the conventional wisdom today is that October 7th changed everything, that nothing will ever be the same after October 7th. But I have a social science background. I was an anthropologist. I tend to believe that human beings revert to baseline. And the truth is there was a status quo before. There was a modus vivendi before this that was problematic but livable. And somehow I have to believe that most people, most human beings for all of human history want what most human beings want, what I want, which is to live our lives, to make a better life possibly for our children and our grandchildren, to live in some level of security and peace with other people, and to have some modicum of prosperity for ourselves and for our family and our neighbors, right? I still believe that. I still have to believe that that's at the core of the human spirit, and that people, most people, will want that once again. Israelis are clearly not ready for it yet. Palestinians are not ready for it yet. Nobody can think about returning to the status quo ante, but they lived with it for decades. And the reality, the realpolitik of the world that we live in is that we will find a way back to some sort of modus vivendi. And I hope that people like the people portrayed in the film are an influence moving forward, just as, you know, I believe there are people on both sides of this conflict who would like to see peace.
Just real quick, we want to start, of course, with this film and the hope of the individuals, and these were just individuals. The problem is with the leaders. So Sinwar yesterday said, we don't want this latest ceasefire agreement, what the United Nations Security Council has passed. We don't want that because we have the Israelis where we want them, right? And you harken back to 1936 to 1939 when it was Haj Amin Husseini who was offered the possibility with the Peel Commission offering. And then even the McDonald paper, which was the white paper, which was horrible for the Jews. We didn't even have an Israel. They were just, is there a possibility of some coexistence, right? And he said, no, we reject all of that. We will reject all of that. We'll never accept a Jewish presence on an equal footing with us. And so are we fooling ourselves? And maybe that is why we keep coming back as people of faith to the book of Ruth and say, no, it's possible. Here, look what Ruth did, and my people are your people, and we can find a connection. And we want to believe it. We want to believe it. But I think it has to come from Amcha, from the ground up. It's certainly not going to come from the leaders, because Husseini didn't want his power base eroded, and Sinwar simply does not want his power base eroded. He's on the top of the heap now. So it's a time for people of faith.
I think also going back establishing a new status quo that is not perfect, that might be okay. But going back to a status quo that was, which was in some ways maybe lulling to sleep Israel while all of this planning was going on, I don't think we can go back to the status quo that was. And so both Israel as the only legitimate organized well, Hamas is very organized in some ways, but organized entity that lives by standards of human decency has to ask for a better status quo, because we can't go back, because otherwise what's going to stop it from happening again in 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever it takes. So I think status quo is good, but a new status quo that is reasonable.
Rabbi, what about you? What do you think about this one?
You know, when I looked at this video first a couple weeks ago, actually one of the first questions I had in my mind is, how many other people did each of these parents lose since October 7th or on October 7th, right? That the magnitude of grief is so enormous in families, and wondering, how many of these people even that were in the film are still alive, right? So I think just that sense too of when you're in grief, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the very bottom, right? And just in terms of getting by and your family and where is safety. And so I was wondering, you know, kind of the curiosity of where are they now and what are their stories and what are they dealing with and who have they lost and what would they say, and with that sort of curiosity. And I think it's, you know, very powerful that these parents found each other, and that in some ways they might have only found each other because of the shared pathway of grief. But the landscape of grief looks different right now. And I wonder, could they still find each other, or when they might find each other? And when I think then about scaling up to the magnitude of people who have lost someone, Israel, in Gaza, right? It's just incredible. And it's powerful that these are parents, right? I mean, I think you'll have to look at a film like this and think, for those of you that are parents or can imagine what it's like to be a parent, I think that is one of the things that's so powerful about that. And I think about that as a parent. I have a 2-year-old and 8-year-old, so I have, you know, children, and we care, we're worried, whoever is in an immediate circle of family, right, about their safety, right? And I think moments like this, you have to wonder about where are the parents and how are they doing, and where are their children?
One other piece of this, and this is one that comes to the chaplaincy that we all have, and Rabbi Baskins out here, he spent much of his life as a rabbinic chaplain, and Rabbi Susan and others. After a tragic death, there can be an anger. First it comes against God, because how could this possibly have happened? And why I didn't deserve it, and that there's no justice then, there's no fairness. And that anger then can be overwhelming if it's not tempered by a sense of what life I still have, what goodness can I capture from the experiences I had with my loved one who's no longer, and can I morph that into something positive and loving? And that too is at the heart of the book of Ruth. Naomi's first reaction was, go home, go to your parents, and don't call me Naomi, call me Mari, that I'm filled with bitterness. God has been bitter to me. I mean, she says this. That's how the first chapter ends. And she's so angry. And so there's never a sense that we totally ever lose hope. We can be angry. The question is, can we find something from the loss that will be positive, that we can build on for love and goodness?
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop. I'm not going to morph that into the Israeli-Palestinians. I'm going to keep that on the family level.
And sometimes it is on that basic human level. I've been meeting with a group of imams this year, and and some of there's so much distance between, you know, where much of their community is and our Jewish community, but I found two of the things I've been able to really connect with one of the other imams in town is, number one, being a parent. He told me that he was planning to take his 8-year-old child, his daughter, who happens to be the same age as my older one, to Israel, to Jerusalem, to go to the Temple Mount this summer. And he was mourning the loss of that trip and wondering when he could do that again. And I wondered when we could do that trip together. So we connected over being parents, and we also connected over the shared grief in our community, right? That sense of who's been lost and how are you supporting, and how are you supporting yourself as you are a pastor, as you're tending to the needs of your those that are in your mosque, right? We connected over anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, but also just over the grief that we're seeing all around us. So I think it can happen, but the things are, the harder it is. The harder it is. I'm wondering if Rabbi Schultz or Rabbi Grunwald want to comment. As a parent, how do you sit with this?
Well, as a parent, and I'm also somehow found my way onto the PTO.
Wow, it didn't take
long. But the reason I say this is, if there was a parent who was doing something awful in a shared community, then the PTO, you would hope, would say, we have rules against this. This should not happen. This cannot happen. But let's say you have two schools who are warring, and one PTO says anything goes. Parents, go, no rules, do whatever you want. In fact, it's totally fine to put our children out front in this fight, even though it's really amongst us parents. We're the agency, the government agency, but put the children out front and let them take all the shrapnel, both literally or metaphorically. And for me as a parent, I think of it like a little bit like that. That was a thought that occurred to me last night as I was rewatching some of this and thinking about this, and that there's some responsibility if you're a parent, as in a community of parents, in a wider community, to say no. And that's what's troubling it. Yeah, one-to-one, loss of a child, horrible. We can all relate to that. It's the nightmare. But there's a larger community in that. You're part of a society and a culture, and you have to say, if something like this, as a parent, I object to this loss, then I also have to be willing to do something or anything to try to shift things.
Look, many of you know that my wife Melanie and I had a child named Kobe who died of cancer about 6 years ago now. And that, I bring that up only because that is a unique experience that God forbid that should happen to any of you. And people have always said to me things like, I have no idea what you feel. And my answer is, you are right. You have no idea what it's like unless you've experienced it. And my loss, our loss, was something totally out of our control. Nobody did that to us. Nobody chose to. I don't believe that was anybody's choice. Cancer just happens. Now imagine, though, that somebody did that on purpose, killed your child, kidnapped your child, right? A bomb fell on your child. I know what I felt after that loss. I know the anger that I felt and how long it took me to work through that anger. I approach this, I could talk about the politics, I could talk about all sorts of things here, but when it comes down to it, for me as a rabbi and as a parent, for me the spiritual problem is the problem of this ongoing trauma and grief, and that I see no end to it anytime soon. And the paradox is that there will be no end to it until the killing stops, because it will only perpetuate over and over again. Every death is just another person who's angry and willing to take up arms, right? So the paradox is, yes, you can't stop it until you stop it, but it won't stop until the killing stops. I know I'm not saying that in a very clear way, but I tend to believe that conflicts end when the parties decide that they can no longer sustain the losses. And I've been just blown away that neither side seems to be approaching that point. And that's just a tragic human experience.
Thank you. There's this very powerful question that I don't know if you can see the subtitles, but one of the parents shared in the film, which is, he asked, "What do you think we personally feel pain from other people?" It can feel incredibly overwhelming, right? Especially here in America. But to end on that sense of action, we as Jews are driven to action on small levels and large levels. I'd like to turn it to our rabbis here and ask, what can we do to help to address this unbearable pain we see in other people right now? This parent asked.
The pain hasn't, the phenomenon that is inflicting this pain has not stopped. Every day there is more pain. So you can't start healing before you can, before the injuries cease. And right now, our first is survival. And that's why they had to register to come in tonight. And that's why at Temple Sinai, we have our armed guards, and we have our cameras, and we have our locking system. Sir, you have that as well. And that's why we have our Jewish professors and Jewish students who are Shrine Gewalt, because they are wondering, well, am I safe going to campus, for goodness sakes, right? So the idea of, well, can I heal, and can I forgive, and can I move on? And we got to stop hurting first, right? And we are being hurt constantly. And the war, well, yes, it'll end when one side says that it has suffered enough. But if you know that the perpetrator is laughing and saying, we are in exactly the place where we want to be, and we are gaining the world recognition from Ireland, from Norway, from Spain, from countries around the world, and look, Israel is now on its back battle. They're winning the public relations battle. Now's the time to talk about reconciliation. We have to survive. And so the first step is survival, to protect ourselves, to teach our children how to stand up strong, to teach each other that alone and isolated, you are most certainly vulnerable. You need a synagogue, you need a congregation, you need a community that will react with strength and pride and say, we are going to be here and we're going to survive this and we'll do it together. And once we have established that fact on the ground, then hopefully the other side will say, okay, now it's an immovable. Now let us talk about this other side. But as long as they think they're winning, and if you look at the newspapers, look at Denver Post, for God's sakes. What happened to their editorial sense of fairness? Right? They think they're winning, and maybe they are. So now we just have to survive.
I mean, we're stuck in a paradox, too. You said it yourself, that the enemies of Israel use their children as human shields. They don't have regard for their own population. That's true. They actually benefit from prolonging this war. There's political reasons for that. It should be noted that there are political motivations on the Israeli side to prolong the war. And yet, the paradox is we're giving them exactly what they want, right? By continuing to fight, right? Again, my empathy and where I start from personally as a parent who's lost a child is with the hostage families. And this is where I will editorialize just a little bit. From the beginning of the war, the top goal of the war, the top war aim should have been returning the hostages, not destroying Hamas. That's number 2. degrading Hamas is possible. Destroying Hamas is impossible. Okay? So I feel there's been a failure to prioritize the families who are suffering in Israel, whose families are being sacrificed, right? And on top of that, we give Hamas exactly what they want, more casualties that they can exploit. So again, the paradox is the only way you get that to stop is to decide to stop, right? To decide that we've degraded them enough, we can achieve a new status quo, we can move forward, but the priority has to be getting the hostages back, and that will take sacrifices that a lot of people are not comfortable with. I agree, I recognize that. But I don't come at this as a political pundit or a war strategist, but as a parent and a spiritual leader who wants to see the suffering end.
So there's a little part of me that says, I don't know, take Queen Esther and Haman. It's kind of like asking Queen Esther to enter into negotiations with Haman and say, but you just stop being so aggressive. You stop going to the king and telling him to, let you attack Haman and wipe, push Amalek out. So, and that goes against, I'm a peacenik in many ways, but that's kind of the dynamic we find ourselves in, is the pressure increases and you're asking Esther to go make peace with Amalek, with Haman, who's actively trying to kill her and all of her people. And the world, all the countries around Persia are saying, no. Come on now, Israel. Come on, Esther. You're so bad. You're trying to kill all of them. You're trying to kill these people, these militants who are trying to get you. But you need to make peace because you have a government. You're legitimate. So you're the one who has to make peace. And I know that's not like an academic or maybe a rabbinical answer, but to me, it's a very reasonable one. It says, how can you ask the people Israel to make peace with Amalek when it's clear this is not a fake Amalek who's just upset and they're willing to make peace? This is not in Egypt, not a perfect relationship. This is something wholly different.
Real quick, but we did have a situation where the United States, most recently, I'm not going back to World War II, most recently, we pursued ISIS to the end. Under President Obama, he made a great celebration of hunting and assassinating Osama bin Laden. He didn't say, oh, we can't get them all. No, they did pretty well.
But we kept the war going even after that and kept sacrificing.
To the analogy about Esther and Haman, it would be more of an accurate analogy if Esther was killing maybe 10 times, regardless of who started it, if Esther was at that time killing at least 10 times, considerably more of Haman's side, and then being asked to negotiate for peace. So it's not currently an accurate analogy.
Okay, I think in the heat, can you turn off your microphones for a sec? Because they're feeding back. That is an excellent place to stop because you can hear all the different Torah in the room and the different perspectives. I'm glad we felt a little tension there for a moment because if we didn't, this is so difficult. This is so painful. There is so much loss of life. There is so much grief. And so I think we wanted to start with this panel to be able to get seriously into the challenge and the Torah and the grief, and also a little bit of the humanity and the hope, right? And so can we give a round of applause for all our panelists?
And thank you, Rabbi Shulman, for moderating.
Of course.
Solved all the problems.
Rabbis will never solve all the problems in a 30-minute panel with 4 rabbis, right? That's The fact that we could get through that many questions, I think, was a miracle, right? No, thank you. We are now going to break into panels. Some of this Torah and conversation will continue, and some new Torah will come. And we want to invite everyone to be active participants tonight and to share, get to know each other. Let me tell you a little bit about what's happening and where, and then we're going to send off. We will come back here at 8:40 for our service. Okay, so we're going to just push back the time. Might say 8:30 on the handout, but we'll start here at 8:40, so there's just a little bit more time for transition and conversation because Jews like to talk a lot, right? Okay, so here are the different, these are on your sheet, but just also to tell people where to go. Rabbi Grunwald will be teaching here, either here or at this back table. At the back table, bring your own chair. Your people shall be my people. Rabbi Rines will be teaching in bays 3 and 4, which are social halls. So just go all the way down towards the windows on your left there and hang a left. It takes 2 to tango. Will Palestinians ever agree to peace with Israel as a Jewish nation and homeland? Rabbi Shields and myself will be co-teaching Finding Comfort Among the Mourners of Zion downstairs in the library. So if you go down the stairs and to the right, that's where our library is right there. And Zach and Maggie will be teaching breath and movement. So be prepared to come and breathe and move, guided by the themes of Shavuot. And that session will be right here in the first part of the social hall, not the sanctuary, but the next doors. If you get lost, if you have questions, find Amy Karp or one of our clergy or staff. And let's give a big round of applause and thank Amy Karp, also our engagement director, for helping to organize tonight. So go and learn, as we say, and we'll see you back here at 8:40 for some singing and Mariv service.
tribes of Israel. So the names of the tribes. It's the original. It's one of the. It's they're coming from the second building that was on the west side. They do go all around, yeah. The frame around that arc, we do have a small arc there behind the doors, and that frame is also from the original building. A few items were like, kept as part of the architecture of this building. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm not sure what the microphone is for, but I think it's for later. Or maybe we're live streaming, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Oh, okay, what about, right now, during my class?
If you don't mind, I don't know what else I can probably do some of that.
It's fine, okay. People, I guess, we could have provided the source sheet online or something, I don't know. Hi, everybody. I'd like to do some introductions in a moment. Go ahead and take a source sheet. I always over-prepare. We're not going to get through all of these sources, but tonight what I wanted to talk about in the context of the theme of the evening is the notion of Jewish peoplehood, which has become more and more complicated as time goes by. And this holiday is in many ways about Jewish peoplehood in the context of Torah, in relation to a kind of national mythology that we have, which is that we were all there at Sinai, right? We talked about that before, that we were all there at Sinai. We're all part of the same covenant. We're all part of the same people, right? We're going to use some different words here too. The Torah uses different words to talk about us as a people. Sometimes the word Am is the most common. B'nai Yisrael. Goy also just means nation, as in different ethnic groups and tribes are called Goyim, right? But also we are Goy Kadosh. We are also one of the nations of the world. So we're going to explore the idea of peoplehood that's found in our tradition and use that to reflect a little bit on the notion of peoplehood that we hold today in the 21st century, which is quite complicated. But maybe we can start with just a brief introduction. Tell us, okay, how about this? Tell us your name and one thing that makes you feel a part of the Jewish people, to the extent that you feel part of the Jewish people. I'll start. I'm Solomon Grunwald. And something that makes me feel a part of the Jewish people. For me, lately it's a lot about my family history, which I've only recently become interested in, and tracing my roots in Europe and so on, and connecting that to a larger sense of Jewish history in Ashkenazi Europe. Yeah.
My name is Paul Levison. That's a tough question.
Just one thing that makes you feel a part of the Jewish people.
And I think it probably is that no matter where I go, if I connect with things Jewish, they seem to reflect the same underlying things. So if I go to daven in Florence, it's the same liturgy, if you will, as you have in Israel, although there are also differences, and still they're together. So the Reform liturgy and the Orthodox liturgy are not exactly the same, but they're enough. So I can go to a shul anywhere, and I can figure out where we are. Oh, they're in Shachrit now.
I'm curious, raise your hand if you've had a similar experience where you've traveled and you've found yourself in a Jewish community and felt like there was a familiarity, right? I think that's a common experience. That's really cool. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, I'm Terry Tillis. I would say just recently, what I think about is a concept that I just very recently became more familiar with is Jewish intergenerational trauma, just sort of from the Holocaust and all kinds of things in our history.
Interesting, yeah.
It helped me understand sort of why I feel the way I do sometimes, which I never thought of it as due to that.
Right. We talk about like Jewish neurosis, but I mean, there's a more sophisticated version of that, which is this idea of intergenerational trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Stacy Pokrass, and it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with the two of them said, actually all three of them said, and that is just I have a sense of Jewish community where you can almost walk into any synagogue, and you just feel a part of it, and to me the dynamics of that is just to think. I think like you think historically about our tradition for thousands of years and the migration around the world, and how we're still a community.
Yeah. Great. Stacy, Terry, Paul. Okay, I'm going to try to remember. Go ahead.
I'm Justin Coburn, and I think just knowing that you can have any branch of Judaism in the same room for this, for a single purpose, right? Regardless if you're Reform or Reconstructionist or Conservative Orthodox, and everybody can agree on the same thing, and they're Jewish at the core root of it, right? Regardless of how you may practice it, at the end of the day, everybody has the same core belief structure.
We have similar reference points, right? We make our reference point to Torah, for example. Yeah.
My name is Chris Waller. Kind of to piggyback on that. So I grew up in a Lutheran church, and I've kind of been immersed in Judaism for the last 20 years or so. And I've taught at DJBS for a number of years. And, this pluralistic environment where there's young Jews from, lots of different backgrounds, but they do have this, unifying, underlying kind of belief structure that is just really cool to be part of, and they kind of and feel like part of that community as well. So for me, it's been like a really powerful experience over the last 8-10 years to kind of see some of those kids even grow and change like in their Judaism, and feel like they're able to express it more themselves.
Thanks, Chris.
My name is Ellen Goldberg Butler, and professionally I'm Ellen Goldberg, and I was always so proud to have the last name Goldberg, just because it just felt like people just knew that I was Jewish, and I was so proud and I loved it. And recently it's kind of a double-edged sword, because now I've been at events and I have my name tag on, Ellen Goldberg, and people have felt their prerogative to come up to me and start talking about Israeli politics and their views on things, and I have been put in very difficult and uncomfortable situations where I've had to shut the conversation down because it's not a place where I feel comfortable sharing the personal feelings that I have, and this person is sharing feelings or ideas that they have, and maybe they've never even been to Israel, they've never served in the military, and it's just been really hard and an interesting time to have the last name Goldberg.
Yeah. But I mean, and all the underlying assumptions that like I can just engage with you because I identify you as right, and that, you should represent your people somehow.
You should know every bit of everything that's going on, and you're going to side with me somehow.
Yeah, wow. Thank you.
My name's Jim Hammerman, Temple Sinai, by the way. For me, it's interesting because I'm going back to something now much more tribal in terms of the connection to the tribe, and that's because 3 months ago our first grandchild was born. Now, I got to tell you, my daughter is the granddaughter of a cantor at a conservative school for 48 years in Baltimore, Maryland. So it was a pretty high likelihood that this young man named Jack was going to have a Brit Milah. And I will tell you that my daughter expressed not only reservations but trepidations over this ceremony that my dad probably, he didn't perform, but was at, I don't know, a couple 100,000, right? And it got me to thinking, about that as the nitty-gritty
Mm,
in some
mhm.
ways of Jewish people, of the foreskins, of
Yeah.
baby namings, of
Are you willing to commit and make that declaration, right?
like when she found out that we'd be eating lox right after his penis was cut, that did not sit very well with her. And I said, well.
Many
I
moms
said-
have a
I
hard
said-
time with
I
that.
said- I said, and it was real interesting just to add one more story to kind of plug in that tribal piece. So when I was second year, real estate associate at Brownstein High, at that time, everyone knows North Brownstein,
Yeah.
late Steve Barber, unfortunately, late Jack Hyatt. And I was at a brief for one of the real estate developers, Brandon's son, of course. We had just hired a senior partner, a very tall, very good-looking former football player from LSU named Tom Strickland, who eventually became U.S. Attorney for Colorado. It was his first brief, and he's took me over, right? And my nickname there was Hammer, for what it's worth. And he said, "Hey, Hammer, this is the most barbaric ceremony I've ever attended."
Yeah.
And I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, "Tom, you have to go to a few of them to kind of get the gist." So I guess there's more that's going on. Think about it. I mean, it's about take your pants down. Are you part of the tribe? Are you part of the other tribe in part? And I don't know sometimes, but within our community, I'm telling you that especially our young people, not all that comfortable with it.
Oh, I know. As a rabbi, I've encountered a lot of ambivalence these days about circumcision, for sure. Hi, who are you?
I'm funny. And I feel like, it's funny, like, just because you're showing up and everybody expecting you to know everything, like that's Rome. But I think what connects me to the Jewish people is Shabbat.
Mm.
Like both of us do Jewish for a living, being able to take off the professional hat and just be with people, relax and eat and shluf and socialize. Like that's important to my Jewish identity these days.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'm Susan Rind, and I will say that over my lifetime, different things have connected me to the Jewish community, and they're all bits of just about everything that you have all shared at this point. But right now, the most relevant is the connection to the people and to the land of Israel. And for me, that's home, and that's the core, and everything else emanates from that, because it is a little religion. It is the sense of Kehilat Yaakov. It's another term, I don't know if it's in here, but the congregation of Israel, the community of Israel. It's observing the holidays, it's the family, it's the tribal, it's all of these different layers. But to me, that everything is sort of like a ripple effect out for me of the core of the land, the people of Israel, my connection to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Josh Rhines. I love, whenever I meet someone new and find out that they're Jewish, there's always something to connect with them over. It doesn't matter how similar or different their backgrounds is, whether it's religious or cultural or even just they were told they were Jewish. There's some connection beyond some random other non-Jewish person that, it's a foundation. There's always something that draws you to them.
Mhm.
It's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, it's like a wink or like that, 6 degrees of separation, but when you're Jewish, it's like 2, right? Like you do Jewish geography with people and you find that, you're not more than like 2 steps away from almost any other Jewish person, right? The question was, who are you? And what is one thing that makes you feel connected to the Jewish people?
I'm Amy Karp, and 3.5 months into Denver life. For me, in every city that we've lived in, it's finding a community. And the community has always been our backbone of our Jewish family and our Jewish life. So from Pittsburgh to Chicago to Denver, our Jewish community has always been our staple.
Nice. But let's jump into some sources and continue this conversation. This was a really good warm-up because you all brought up many different aspects of peoplehood and belonging. The idea really starts, as we've already mentioned, with Abraham, the covenant that God makes with Abraham and Sarah. We'll do a couple of these texts out loud together, and then we'll maybe break off into a little bit of Chavruta. But would somebody like to read in English the first source? Just read it out loud for us.
Hashem said to Abraham, "Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse the one who curses you. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you."
All right, so if we were to put this up on a whiteboard, we won't do that today, but what are some of the elements of peoplehood that are expressed in this text? What is the Torah's notion of peoplehood here? Just throw out a few of them. There's many here.
Being a blessed nation.
Being blessed. Okay, great. What else?
It's like a physical place.
A connection to a land, right? Abraham has to pick up from where he is in Mesopotamia and go to a particular place that God will show him. It turns out it's the land of Israel. And it's a connection to a place. Okay, so that's important. What else? Family. I think at the core of the Jewish notion of peoplehood is a sense of kinship and family, right? Let's keep going. We'll unpack that one a lot more because family is going to show up a lot. Anything else?
It kind of relates to what I was saying, is I will make your name great.
Yeah, that you'll have a notoriety. You'll be recognized as a people, right? Not just as a clan, a confederation of tribes, but a nation, right? You'll be seen by, the way you'll be seen by others is important here. What else? What is the promise? And how do you relate to this covenant as a source of peoplehood?
The interesting part is it's two pieces. And when it says curse someone that curses you, but on the flip side, immediately it said you shall be blessed in the sense that all the families here shall bless you.
Yeah.
So, I think we struggle with that.
You mean the part of being a blessing?
A curse and a blessing.
Right. Right. I mean, I didn't bring a whole lot of other texts that we could have brought about being an Am Segula or an Am Kadosh, right? Being a holy nation, a chosen nation, a treasured nation, but also with a sense of responsibility, and that's going to come in the second text, because this covenant that God makes with Abraham is not just I'm going to make you a great nation, and all you have to do is circumcise yourself and commit to me. More comes later as generations go by. Now in the generation of the Israelites, this is the core story of why we're here tonight, from Devarim, Deuteronomy. So let's have someone else read that.
Can I make a comment? It starts out, though, not with formation of family, but the breaking up of family. Leave your father.
So interesting, yeah. Oh, the psychiatrist here getting really deep. Yeah. No, you're right. He breaks from his family to form his own family, and it's his own family unit. It doesn't even go retroactively. Like his other, Lot doesn't become part of our people. He's a relative. But the others of his family, of Terach's family, are also not part of the Israelite people. It's only Abraham and the family that he and Sarah create. Even Ishmael is problematic, right? And the story is a polemic about how he has to be, banished so that it can be very clear who this family is. It's Abraham and Sarah's family. So interesting what you're saying. And yes, we share a mythology as a people that we are all related, right? And there's some genetic, evidence to that. Definitely Jews from different areas of the world have a lot of genetic connection, and there are some genetic markers that seem to go back to ancient times. But there's also a national kind of mythology that the Torah is creating, that we're all the relatives of Abraham and Sarah. That's why a convert, when they become a convert, takes on the name Ben Avraham v'Sarah, because the mythology of the Torah is we're all descendants of Abraham and Sarah. Yeah.
There's also just a couple of points. One is that our narrative doesn't start with Abraham and Sarah. Right? The narrative starts with creation and not with peoplehood. And then peoplehood emerges from creation. So we are all starting from the same source in that. The other thing that I'm noticing is the idea, I don't know how to put it any other way besides like I'm rubber and you're glue, right? Like there's this shield of protection. If they bless you, it's going to come to you. If they curse you, it's going to bounce right back up. This idea of boundaries and this divine protection.
That's what these Jewish students are finding.
Yeah.
We could take this passage and truck it to my alma mater, Columbia, or DU, right? Because you're not invited. There's what Rabbi had a wonderful the Bartolomeo sermon about her experience with diversity and inclusion, and it was a wonderful. Thank you, Rabbi. And it was about, okay, everyone's included, but not you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I myself was not unhappy that young Jews got a taste of it, because my grandparents said, in Yiddish, it's hard to be a Jew. And I don't think when all of your friends, everyone's like, one big happy family, and you're on the same soccer team, and et cetera, it's not conveyed until it's in your face.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, my, colleagues, et cetera, fellow students, if we had to face that, if I were at Columbia this year, it would have been really, and if I had been from a LA suburb or from Iowa or wherever, being Jewish, right, it's a little different than this idea of you're different.
Yeah.
And you are different. And now some of our, right, for the first time, these young Jews are discovering that other people are kind of saying the same thing, but in not a way that they anticipated.
Right. There's so many passages I could have brought here also, like, for example, of Balak and Balaam, right? Seeing the Israelites as a people set apart, different, right? Other. Yeah, I could go on here on this one. But let's move on to Deuteronomy. Would someone else like to read for us? Alan, do you want to read out loud?
Sure.
Thank you.
I was just
I know you were trying not to make eye contact with me, so I called on you.
Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the laws and rules that I proclaim to you this day. Study them and observe them faithfully. The Lord our God made a covenant with us, Horeb. It was not with our fathers that the Lord made this covenant, but with us, the living, every one of us who is here today. Face to face, the Lord spoke to you on the mountain out of the fire."
Yeah. What's interesting to hear is that this is in Deuteronomy where Moses is speaking to the generation that already has, the generation that actually received the Torah at Sinai has passed. These are their descendants. And by the way, in Deuteronomy, Horeb is another name for Mount Sinai. So, and it's Moses making an interesting claim. He says it was not just with your fathers that the Lord made this, this covenant, and there are other passages here too that say something similar, but it was with all of us living now. That's where we also get the midrashic understanding that all Jews were at Sinai. But what is it that makes us a people according to this text? What is the thing that makes us a people?
It's covenant. And so the first part was about family, and now that their obligations.
Yeah.
Part of this people, their obligations. It's interesting, verse 3 though. I can't remember.
Go for it.
What I was working for. It doesn't say. What's missing is that the covenant was made with our ancestors. It's in the Hebrew too. It's missing that part. It was not. That's the part that's weird. We're missing the word just. Right?
I don't know, like a karat imanu brit. Yeah, you know what? This translation doesn't do it justice, right? Because it means not just with, right? Not just with.
Not just with, but also with.
Yeah. You're right. That translation would be better. I just grabbed this one off
The whole
Safaria.
idea- No, but it sort of says that in Hebrew too.
Well, it says, Lo et avotenu karat Adonai. I guess there's an implied, there's like an Ella that needs to be heard.
Exactly, it's just interesting, I found it interesting.
But maybe that's a bold claim that Moses is making, that maybe it is truly renewed in every generation. So that covenant is in a sense almost a different covenant than the covenant that you renew each day. And also that, right, they're supposed to go across the Jordan and then like reaffirm the covenant over again in this generation. But it's a covenant. It's also centered in Torah, in law, right? And Rabbi used the word obligation too. Yes, because there's, in the first source, there's a sense of kinship, but here it's about relationship that goes beyond close family kinship. Do you want to say more, Melanie, about it?
I'm just noticing the language of, like it's about face to face, about being
Oh, that.
together. It's not about, I'm going to see you from rather face to face.
Oh, so that it's both communal and it was personal with you, right? Each individual spoke to you. Interesting. I thought you were talking about a sense of peoplehood that, when you get to this point in the Torah, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. And like if you read Sapiens and like, what's his name, Harari, Yuval Harari, right? He points out, what anthropologists have always pointed out, that you have like, you once you're larger than a clan, you need some sort of social organization, right? You need, because you no longer see each other, you may see each other as kin in an abstract sense, right? Like Jews, but the truth is that it's a little more complicated than that because we're kin and we're not. You travel around the world, Jews look different in different places. The truth is we've intermingled wherever we've gone. We're not one ethnic group. We're not really one nationality, right? And yet, you go to a shul in another country and you'll hear Hebrew words that are familiar, and there's something that's just immediately familiar that brings you like 2 degrees of separation rather than 6 to these people. But it's based in like this sense of shared narrative and Torah. Stacy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, because I learned this a little bit different, maybe, but it has the same application, because I learned it as a covenant. I did not learn it as a literal view that I'm hearing from you. I heard it as a spiritual view that all Jews in the world heard the covenant face to face with God, that we all know. It's all here. And if that's true, that also brings the binding that we've all talked about when you face another Jew, who's also heard it, and it's all here. And that's the way I learned this passage, face to face, that when Moses brought the commandments down, all Jews everywhere heard it. Not there, all Jews, past, present, future.
But it doesn't say that. I was just noticing, if you read what it said, as opposed to when we read on Pesach, we were all there and
As
Sinai.
if you were
This one says it was not with our fathers that the Lord made this covenant, but with us the living. And that's a real shift. That's, instead of saying it's every Jew who ever existed was there, it's saying only the living. And I don't understand that.
Or both, right? That is not just with our ancestors, and that it's renewed in every generation by our accepting of Torah. Let's do the next couple. We just have maybe 20 minutes. What I'd love to do, if you guys are comfortable doing a little bit of chavruta, is, if you're comfortable with that, turn to someone next to you. Pairs, 3 is okay too. Read through the passage from the book of Ruth, and you can skip the Midrash, Ruth Rabbah, but we can take a look at some of the questions. We'll talk about the questions together. Feel free to use the questions to guide a conversation with your chavruta. So, like, what do you observe? The story of Ruth is considered kind of the paradigm of joining the Jewish people. Yitro, in a sense, in the Torah, joins the Jewish people. He attaches himself to Moses and the Israelites. But Ruth, this Moabite woman, in this moment, plays a role in the rabbinic imagination as kind of the paradigm of the convert, somebody who's willing to declare their devotion to Naomi, to the Jewish people, and adopt the Israelite community as her community. And so I wanted to prompt that for a conversation about what it means to join the Jewish people, because more than maybe ever in our history, people are in the 20th and 21st century are joining the Jewish people, attaching themselves to the Jewish people who were not prior, who had not been Jewish before. Or not. And not necessarily by conversion, right? By also being part of a Jewish family and not converting. So take a look at the text, talk for a few minutes with the person next to you, and then we'll discuss together. The text is at the bottom of page 1. The questions are in the middle of page 2. Read the text out loud with your partner and feel free to discuss. Yeah.
Old fashioned.
I've been married 38 years, so if I get a break from, sorry.
Sorry, what was the first time?
Mixed marriage, I'm from Baltimore. Right? So maybe, and you said you were born in Lutheran, right? So this is kind of interesting. Maybe all four of us. Okay. I can start.
I guess we're just going through here.
She said, see your sister-in-law.
Because it's not right. So.
Well, I personally don't think this is really pertinent to right now because just what I was just hearing the rabbi say is, I mean, right now, it seems like people are sort of taking sides. You know, I'm with your Jews, or I'm not, or I was, you know, I'm with you Jews, but I like killing was going on. You know, and so I think there's this need to, not the need, but there's a happening going on now. You know, allegiances and stuff.
It's even beyond that.
Kind of the thought that it's sort of a cliche that Jews are defined by the fact that people around us call us Jewish and identify us as Jewish. And so we cling to each other because that's where safety is. I don't know if it's really true or not. Certainly in this day and age, I don't think.
So take about one more minute to discuss.
Maybe what the world of teachings right now, as we face frank anti-Semitism, that is probably there all the time, but it's expressing itself. Maybe that's an important factor. I don't know, maybe the students, the students there are experiencing anti-Semitism. And I just thought the person said,
So it occurs to me that starting at
anti-Semitism in a child. I can remember one episode I read in elementary school. Never
hold them out and say directions.
And in that interview, so this generation, 75 years ago.
Yeah, I just want to like prevent that, you know. All right, let's come back together.
For me, it's hard. I mean, I think if you experience something for the last 60 or 70 years of your life, maybe you're more accustomed to it and more, accommodating.
All right.
All of a sudden,
I want to run through this midrash really quick just to broaden out the conversation beyond the Ruth text. And just because I think it's kind of a neat midrash that tries to interject a little bit more of the conversation that's going on here. What does this conversion here mean? Because at least this midrash definitely sees what Ruth is doing as gerut, as conversion. And Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave you and to return from following you." What does entreat mean? The Hebrew here, I should have done my own translation. Mahu al tifgei bi, amra la lo techta alai. Tifgi bi here really means something like don't, not hurt, but paga means to strike, which means like really don't push back. Don't, Rabbi, would you have any other suggestion here? Don't fight me on this.
Yeah. I mean, in modern Hebrew, it means to be wounded, but
Mhm.
it's some kind of real physical contact.
Yeah, it's a strong response either way. Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave you," right? Don't make me leave you. Don't push me away, basically, and to return from following you. So what does entreat mean? Ruth says to Naomi, "Do not sin against me by telling me to leave and return from following you. I intend to convert anyway, and it is better that I do it with you than with someone else," which is really interesting. I mean, we could spend a little time on that, but I think what she's saying is that this is also personal. I am doing this in part because I want to, and in part because I love you, and because I want to, you are my teacher in this, right? When Naomi heard this, she immediately began to lay out before her the laws of conversion. She basically says to her, look, there's, becoming Jewish isn't, there's a little bit of reading, the rabbis are reading back in the text something that's not there at all, right? But, because they didn't practice halakha in this way at the time. But they put some words in Naomi's mouth. They say, "My daughter, Jewish women do not go to non-Jewish theaters and circuses," right? If you become Jewish, you got to be like us. You don't do the things that the non-Jewish people do. You don't go to theaters and circuses. So she's trying to discourage her. Ruth said, "Where you go, I will go," which is really great what they're doing with the language here. So saying I will go to the places you go. You go to shul and you go to your community and you do your things. I'm not going to go and do the things that my people used to do, go to the theaters and the circuses. Naomi said, "My daughter, Jewish women do not live in a house where there is no mezuzah." Ruth said, "Where you lodge, I will lodge," right? So she's saying, I will take on the mitzvot too. Your people shall be my people refers to the warning and punishment. Your God shall be my God refers to the rest of the commandments. This is a truncated version of the text, but what is I guess the question based on this text and the Ruth text that you all learned together, what do you observe that has changed in the way that people who seek to become Jewish, to convert to Judaism, are welcomed or not in the time that we live in? I feel like in our lifetime that has changed enormously. From when, I don't know about you, when you guys were growing up, but attitudes towards converts have changed quite a lot.
Even if they don't convert, they're often welcomed.
Nowadays, right? Whereas many times people who wanted to join the Jewish people were looked upon with suspicion or discouraged in Naomi's way, in a loving and hey, I just want to let you know, being Jewish comes with obligations and different lifestyle, right? Which is the rabbinic approach to conversion. You inform people that being Jewish is more than just an identity. You don't just say I identify as Jewish. Well, no, Jewish is actually something,
right? It's doing certain things, it's committing yourself in certain ways. So I don't know, tell me about what are some of your observations about how our community welcomes or doesn't welcome people into our midst these days in an increasingly diverse world.
Well, we probably need all the allies we can get right now, so might be a more important reason to welcome.
You know, it's been an interesting phenomenon to observe that there's been an uptick, small but noticeable uptick in people choosing to convert to Judaism after October 7th. Many people who are members of a Jewish family already, so often a spouse who, for whatever reason, chose not to convert but is part of a Jewish family. My colleagues and I are just kind of comparing notes, and anecdotally I'm hearing, yeah, I've got a student right now who came forward after October 7th who said, I've been married to my wife for 20 years, we have kids together. I never really thought about conversion, but I want to throw my lot in with the Jewish people, right?
Well, I can give a personal example. We had the Defeat Anti-Semitism program at Temple Sinai, which I was kind of involved in setting it up. And my daughter-in-law, who isn't Jewish, and her mother, who also isn't Jewish, were like the first ones to say, we want to come. And that really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, becoming part of the Jewish people has changed too, right? It doesn't always involve conversion to Judaism anymore. What else? Anybody else?
So for someone that, so I grew up in like a very Midwestern, kind of typical town, and honestly, I don't think that until I was like in my teens, even knew a Jew. Like I had no idea. Well, it wasn't even something that was on my radar. And then even, I would say the first 20 years of my life, I still really only knew like a handful of Jews. And my experience in terms of like, the Jewish community, I think initially where I may have, it seemed like I maybe have taken it of like, didn't feel quite welcome. I think it was more myself, not the community itself, like feeling uncomfortable, not being, familiar with customs or traditions. And that's a huge learning curve to know like, it's not that you're not accepted, it's just that this is a very different experience. And I can imagine for a lot of people, that's a very steep learning curve, depending, where you grew up or the general experience that you have had.
Yeah.
I would also say, like we said, I think to some degree it's hard, because we're Jews aren't trying to convert people. People want our community that's different than us, feeling like we're trying to bring them to our community. So somebody coming into our community, there's, I think, a cautiousness of what are they seeking, and
our community tends to be more aggressive converting Jews, like my friends, right? Like they love to find someone from San Francisco who grew up eating bacon every morning over at H, and and follow to Shuvah, to kind of come around to become more engaged, if you will, with the Jewish community. I have found that in the Orthodox, we have a number of friends at Eidos, that a number of the strongest, most, I should say, traditional members of that synagogue are actually converts. And so, it's to me, it's like always, be prepared to be surprised.
My temple is the same way. Some of the strongest people there.
Granting that memory is often not good. My recollection growing up was that if someone converted for the purposes of love, for marriage, that was looked upon as not a real conversion, because they weren't converting to take on Torah. They were taking on love, family, so forth. But in fact, Ruth takes on family, and that's what pushes her. Or not only, that part of it pushes her to convert.
The sort of irony of what you're saying is that I think there's some truth to what you're saying about in earlier generations, The idea that people were pressured into conversion, and it definitely happened. I mean, I've been told many stories by congregants of, older generations feeling that somebody was pressured to convert. But today, I would actually, and I grew up with a little bit of that prejudice, I have to admit. But in my own experience as a rabbi sponsoring conversion students, I actually find that the students that are in a couple and are converting into a Jewish family, first of all, nobody's holding a gun to their head anymore. That just is not the case in the non-Orthodox world anyway. And they're choosing it, absolutely making it their own. And they're being embraced by a Jewish family that is going to support and nurture them and continue to strengthen their Jewish identity. So I actually feel really great when somebody's converting into a Jewish family because I know they're going to be supported, right, in their Jewish growth. Anybody else before we move on? I want to be aware of the time because this is the room where we're going to do Mariv, and so we don't really get the choice to go long, and we only have 2 minutes. The last 2 texts are on page 2, and then you can read the quotes from some of these modern writers yourself. Speak of a concept that I think many of us know, and it shows up in a couple of places in slightly different forms, but it basically says that all of Israel is responsible for one another. Kol Yisrael, where's the words in the Hebrew? Shekol Yisrael arevim ze bazer, or ze lazeh. We're going to be done just momentarily. I think that without just to close with this idea, I think this is an important idea more so than perhaps ever before, especially in the world that we live in today, the threats that are once again resurging, the ways that we feel really embattled. At the same time that we're welcoming new people in and becoming a more diverse community as a result, we also need to remember that we have to be here for one another, to protect one another, to care about one another, to support our institutions, to educate our children, and recommit ourselves, just like earlier generations that we read about at the beginning. So I'll leave it there, and thank you for joining tonight and learning together, and have a great Shavuot, Chag Sameach. We're going to start services here in a moment, so you can grab a Siddur, and I think also a song sheet. The song sheets might be for the service too. I'll find out. Thank you all. I'm going to open the doors.
So the reason I'm asking is
Yeah, I've seen it all the time. People converting now after many years. That's a different
that's what I was asking, because it's like, I understood one about that is not something that Naomi would say.
Hiring the DEI. She was put on like administrative leave for a year. Trust me, you're
Is it cool if I move this up?
Yeah, totally. From the other side.
Check, hey.
That's cool. Thank you. Yay. Hooray. You the best. You the best, and nothing without sound. Thank you.
Because Sandy
You guys are gonna. Right now? Just any Magoon since I just pulled it out of me. Yeah, ain't done. Yeah, I can do it.
I'm just getting used to the sound in this room with this particular group, so I want to see if you will sing to me this beginning part. That's beautiful. I can hear them. Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach.
I'm so happy that we're all here together. And my name is Eitan Cantor. I'm the music director at the HEA. And it's an honor to be joined by my colleague and friend, Ruthie Lipschultz, who is the cantorial soloist at Sinai. We never get to do this, so yes.
We're so excited.
Yes. Ruthie's going to start us off by leading us in a song, which you can find if you've got one of the paper sheets. It's the first song, Where You Go, I Will Go. If you don't have a sheet, that's okay, because you can just catch on to the words. And so, here we go.
Okay, so we picked this up at the meditation, yeah. And so this is by Shoshana Dedwab, am I saying her name right? From the book of Ruth. So really easy to catch on. It goes, where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Yep. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. And the next part is, and your people are my people. Your people are mine. Try that. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Should we try it all together from the top? Okay. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. And your people, and your people are my people. Your people are mine, yay! Your people are my people. Want me divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, refugee. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, refugee. Where you go, I will go. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Eitan, stick with the melody and I'll do the harmony, right? Where you go, I will go. Mother Earth. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go. Mother Earth. Where you go, I will go. If you're with Eitan, go. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, children. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, children. Where you go, I will go. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, ancestor. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, ancestor. Where you go, I will go. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
We're going to now pick up our red prayer books, and we're going to turn to the Baruch Hu, but I wanted to, before I ask people to rise as they're able, just bring us into this musical moment, because we have this thing that maybe you already know about, nusach, which is the musical mode that goes with a particular moment, whether it's that it goes with the weekday morning service, or it goes with Shabbat, or it goes with a particular holiday. It's the sound and the soundscape that can bring us in a Pavlovian way into a moment in the Jewish calendar. And it's very rare that we get to actually use the nusach, the set melody, for a festival evening. We're very rarely in synagogue together on a festival evening, but it's such an evocative, in my opinion, evocative nusach. So I want to sing a couple of lines back and forth. So I'll sing a phrase, and if you'll sing it back to me, and then I'll ask you to reflect on how it feels or what it makes you think. Ya da da da, I da da, I da 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 da. Ay da 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 ma ya 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 ya. So nice to hear your voices. Who would like to share what that nusach evokes for you? What is the imagery for you, or what's the feeling? Feels soothing. Thank you.
Connection through many, many, many generations.
Thanks, Rich. Connection through many generations. Yeah. Glory. I'll take one more. For me, it feels really different than the morning festival sound, which to me is pretty like we've arrived at the grandeur. It's kind of major. This we start the Shacharit service in the morning with da 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 da. It's like, oh, heaven, God, something like that. But this one, to me, especially the ending phrase, to me is like more pleading, and I think of it with the shape, like we've arrived at the base of the mountain. We've arrived at the base, and we're now waiting to receive. And we're like, we're ready to receive, please. So, however this nusach lands for you, we're now going to really jump in with a couple of words. So I invite you to rise on page 39A. 39A. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Evoeh. Baruch Adonai Leolam Hashem Baruch Chokma Pateach Sharim. Umavir Yom Uvilayla Umavedil Ben Yom Uvein Laila Adonai Tzvaot Shemo El Chai Vekayam Tamid Yimoch Aleinu Leolam Evoed. Baruch Ata Adonai Hamariv Haravim. Page 40.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי כן חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובכם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה,
ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברכת אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Et Adonai Elohecha, bechol levacha, bechol nafshecha, ubechol meodecha, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
נתתי עשר בצלחה, ואחת הבשלים לכם לכם, ודבתם לכם בסבבת לכם, קרא אף אחד לכם ותלכם ובצלחת, על לכם כמה שצריכתם לכם, ובלתם אותם את בניכם לרבה במשפט. ובני משלים מועדה בבני ישראל ואתה ועשה צדקם, ותמתם לנו הציצתם, גרתם לציצית, למען תזכרו ותתמכו את מצוותיי. אני ידע לכם. We just had this beautiful moment of musical cacophony, which is one of my favorite things when our traditions musically clash a little bit, because I remembered in this moment that in the conservative movement, people do the end of a sentence, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and in the Reform movement, they tend to da-da-da-da-da-da, right? So we were all singing with conviction our own traditions, and it's just wonderfully clashing. I just love it so much. We're continuing.
Pick up on page 44 at the arrows.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים בני ישראל, הכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם.
מי כמוך.
Yai lai lai la lai la 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 lai yai lai lai la lai la 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 lai ya lai la lai la lai la 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 lai yai la lai lai la lai la lai ba elim Adonai mi kamocha nehar bakodesh nora tehilot o seifele nora tehilot al seifele Malechutecha uvanecha bokei ayam lifnei Moshe uVeiram ze Elianu ve'amru ze Elianu ve'amru Adonai Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Yalalai one more time Yai lai lai la lai la 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 lai Yai lai lai la lai la 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 lai Yalai la lai la lai la 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 lai Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai
ונאמר, כי פד אדוני את יעקב, וגיע לו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'tamidenu shokenu lechaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'tamidenu malkeinu lechaim Ushmot zeitenu uvoenu lechaim ushalom me'ata ve'ad olam Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu Shalom Behamdenu lechaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Behamdenu Malkeinu Behamdenu Malkeinu lechaim Baruch atah Adonai הפורש סוכת השלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
There's such joy in just watching these two work together, isn't it? It's a gift. We're going to turn now to page 46, and we'll do that little line that says Vayidaber Moshe, which we say for festivals, and we get to relish these gifts of liturgy that we get to say only on festivals as opposed to Shabbat. Then we'll do the Chatzi Kaddish. And then after we have that sort of spiritual comma, we're actually going to do our own silent Amidah, which for the festivals is on page 306. So just to give you a roadmap of where you're going. And just a little, I want to note something. So if you actually turn way ahead and you go to page, I think it's here in 311, no, 310, sorry. In the Shavuot, in the festival Amidah, we get to appreciate what is unique about this festival, and much in the way that is how it's described. So Sukkot is described, Hag HaShavuot Hazeh, Zaman Matan Toratenu. This holiday, this Hazeh, this holiday, a Shavuot, how is it described? As giving the gift of our Torah. Can anyone raise your hand and tell me what is the most meaningful gift you have ever received? Can anyone think of that? It's a hard question, right? I do. Was it? Are you sitting next to them right now? So family, yeah, right? What else? What's like the most meaningful gift? Well, how about for you? A tree planted in Israel. Beautiful. How about for someone else? It's not the most meaningful. What's amongst the most meaningful gifts? Life. Yes. What did you say, Bonnie? You say something? Oh, no, someone's. 3 children. Yeah. Yeah. Hannah, how about you? Your guitar. Something you use to bring music into the world. Yeah. Yeah, right. It's a gift that gives, right? So many of these gifts are ones that, aren't just for oneself, but are shared. Yeah. Community. Yeah. I saw another hand, I think, over there. One more person. What is the most meaningful gift that you've ever received? Yeah. Nature, right? Torah on Shavuot is described as Matan Toratenu, right? The gift that we are given, our Torah, right? So as we enter into this Shavuot Amidah, as we say these words, I invite you to receive Torah as that gift, as if it was the most meaningful gift that you've ever received. And Torah has so many faces, it can mean something different. But wow, not only did we receive that gift once, like a child or a tree planted, but we receive that gift constantly, every year. And so just allow yourself to receive that gift, to feel it enter you, to feel it come to you, to appreciate it, to share it with others, and just to ponder what that might mean to you to receive the gift of Torah anew. So we're going to turn back to page, you can keep your finger in the 300s. We're going to turn back over to page 46, and then we'll flip forward to 306, and the Mariv Amidah is done on our own. It's our own individual gift. No one else has to do it. We do it together, but alone. So happy receiving.
וידבר משה את מועדי אדוני אל בני ישראל ידעי 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 ידעי
Okay.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה ועמד יפרח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי כל יום ובחיי בכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה
ושפכתה ונחמתה דמירה לעלמה
ואמרו אמן.
306. We're going to turn all the way back to page 54. Thank you, Rabbi Grunwald. יתגדל ויקדש שם מרבה ועלמא דברי קריתי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל ועגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תוש ברכתה ונחמתה דמירן וימה ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלותינו ועזון לכל ישראל קודם אבו נשמע ואמרו אמן יהי שלום רבה אמן שמיה בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל דרידי דרידם דרידי יא 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 אמרו amen. A little taste of Yom Kippur there.
We're going to call forward Rabbi Shields now, share a few words. You can have a seat. We're going to be turning to 402 in just a moment.
It's, I made a mistake, basically, which was that I put in this outline a melody that I'm so excited about, but which I originally thought was definitely a Shavuot melody, which is Ata Horei Taladat, and then assigned it to Rabbi Shields to talk about. But the truth is, it's not. It's more of a Simchas Torah thing, but we're still going to sing it. I'll tell you why. First of all, I found it in a Zmirot database song sheet that said for Simchas Torah and for Shavuot. And are we not celebrating a similar thing? Yeah, so also the real underlying secret reason why I want to sing this is because we sing so often in our Shir Chadash service here, we sing the tune Baruchu et Adonai Mevorach, right? Sound kind of familiar? But we never sing what that comes from, which is this. So I'll invite you to turn all the way to 402, Simchas Torah mode, because receiving the Torah, dancing with the Torah, kissing the Torah, page 402. Ata horei taladat ki Hashem hu Elohim. Okay, so that's all the words we're going to sing for now. We'll sing the second line in a moment, but you can follow my finger for what the notes are. Ata horei taladat ki Ki Hashem hu Elohim. One more time with the slow part. Ata Oreta Ladat Ki Hashem hu Elohim Elohim Einod milvado Einod milvado Hashem hu Elohim Einod milvado Hashem hu Elohim Einod milvado Hashem hu Elohim Elohim Einod milvado Hashem hu Elohim. Yeah, and if we were in the yeshiva, now we would go, Ata. You know, we could use, with more caffeine, we could go there. We're going to turn now all the way back to page 79 for the Kiddush. And I invite you to rise as you're able. The melody for Kiddush is going to sound maybe familiar to the melody for the Akdamut, which is this really kind of transcendent, poetic, difficult to understand Aramaic thing that is traditionally read right before the Ten Commandments are read tomorrow. So if you're going to be someplace where the Akdamut are read, look for the tune. Page 79. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am ve'rom banu mikol hashon ve'kideshanu b'mitzvotav. ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה, מועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון, את יום חג השבועות הזה, זמן מתן תורתנו, מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. ומועדי קודשך בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש ישראל והזמנים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. I love that we're a town of like beautifully singing rabbis. We're so lucky. Just hearing all these beautiful rabbinic singing coming this way.
We're going to remain standing now as we're able and turn to page 56.
עלינו לשבח
אדון הכל,
לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות,
ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. השמיים ויסר הארץ, ומושבי קרוב השמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת למלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשב אותי לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחתינו. נתקן לקבל לך ותקן לבושי וכל לבעשי בשמך לפניך אדוני כביכול שמך הכרתנו נוכל להאמין על המועד כי המקודשך ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא
יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
The Kiddush Yatom is on page 58, and tomorrow at Temple Sinai we will have our Yizkar. I think you're going to Yizkar on Thursday morning. And it's a time where we have this celebration, especially this Chag, which we celebrate with Torah and stay up all night and we're studying, and yet we also pause and think of our loved ones. But their Torah is our Torah, and they taught us. And so those who are thinking of a loved one, for Yizkar, you'll think of all of our loved ones. Is there anyone observing a yahrzeit right now? At least think of them in your heart, please, Jen.
My grandfather,
Pete Goldstein. Yeah. Are there others? Please. Mother. We've had far too many funerals this week as well. For those who are in mourning, those who are thinking of loved ones. Again, the Kaddish Yatom is on page 58. Let us recite this prayer in their memory and know that the goodness that they gave us, the love that they gave us, it continues on with our love and with our lives. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma devarach chirotei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomei achon, v'chayedecho beit Israel, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru, amen. Yeh shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarak v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'tromam v'yitnaseh, v'tadar v'taleh v'talal, shemei d'kudashah, b'richu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'imru, amen. Yeh shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu, v'kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. I invite you to be seated for just a moment. We have just a couple of announcements, and then we'll finish with Oseh Shalom. So after we leave this room, there's going to be refreshments out in the atrium, lobby, foyer, whatever is your word of preference. And we have some regular cheesecake. We even, I believe, have some vegan cheesecake. And after that, back in this room, Ruthie and I and Rabbi Grunwald and the Moshe Pod folks, we're going to lead a tish. That's singing around a table, and we're going to be learning a little bit of text also with that. And we're going to go not until 11:31, because last year we set the alarm off at 11:31, but a little, just slightly before that. So we invite you to stay as long as you want and be part of the tish. You can also come to part of the tish and then leave partway through. It's very casual. And I have a couple other announcements, but I wanted to also invite if any rabbis have things that I'm missing. But Moshe Pod and HEA, we're running a backpacking retreat next weekend, and there are 4 slots left. So if you are particularly in the ages of 22 to 39 and want to come on a backpacking trip, talk to Maggie or Zach, or if you know somebody that would want to come. Also, we have a concert coming up here that I'm super excited about on the 30th, June 30th, which is Eliana Light. And we're both big fans and friends of Eliana Light. So last time she was here, she stayed in our building, and it was like, whoa. So anyway, June 30th, we'd love to see you here at 7 p.m. That's a Sunday evening. And are there any like Sinai events that you're like, oh gosh, we should mention that thing that we should come to?
Yes? Yes.
All of them.
All of them, okay.
How many of you think we should do Shabbat Shira?
Could be
I'm
really
trying to
nice.
get him to come to Shabbat Shira. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And Rabbi Grumel brings up a great point. These song sheets, if you could like stack them on the table back there, because that is what we're using for our Tish. Okay. Let's end with a say shalom.
Oh, say shalom, bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Yay. I want you to do Shabbat Shira.
That's really good happen. I just feel like I put you guys on the spot and did some announcements because I was like, I want to announce these things, but I should have.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this microphone off
Yeah.
so we're not live streamed anymore.